Hey, come on. Come on. Hey. What? Here we go, here we go, here we go now. Hey. Let's chit chat, this is the show now. Come on. Bad black mama's gonna let you know now. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Come on. Let's chit chat, let's chit chat, let's chit chat, sis. Hey, what's up? Let's chit chat, let's chit chat, let's chit chat, sis. Hey.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Hey.
Hey.
Hello.
So I'm just gonna jump right into this one because you guys, I always start with this, I think this kind of corny introduction, but I wanted to sound more like, when we have our conversation and we're off screen, or off recording. So I'm gonna jump right into this one. Jaslyn, welcome to the porch. She is my niece, and she beautiful. And she brought this topic to me, and you know what? It made me reflect. Housewives is a unpaid. I looked this up. It's a unpaid job, and I had to think about my times of being married. I've been married a couple times, so but I had to think about really when my kids were little people. You know what I mean? And when I thought that, no, I didn't thought. I know that I needed to have a structured time with them to take care of them and also take care of my husband because that's what makes me, a wife and a mom. But when I start thinking about housewives, I think about somebody like my mom was. Okay, my mom was a housewife, and when she chose to have a career, it almost was like she didn't have to have so many other options. You understand what I'm saying? And when I say so many other options, like she didn't have to have somebody watch us, you know what I mean? She didn't have to have somebody clean up the house. She didn't have somebody have to cook, when she started to do her venture into her job as an RN. So when I think about that, I just think that it's a lot of interpretations. Do y'all agree of what a housewife is and why it's unpaid? But I'm going to also, after y'all give me y'all thoughts about it, I'm going to tell you what I looked up and what I found about what people think a housewife job is unpaid. Okay, so Jaslyn, you are the one that brought this to the porch. Tell me what you were seeing out there.
So usually what I was telling you guys earlier is just people around my age, whenever we get to talk about like marriage, this topic always comes out. Usually because I don't have kids. So when people think of like housewife, they're like, what are you doing if you don't have a kid in the house? I'm like, I still have a husband. I still have a house. Realistically, like I told Aunt Kim, like I didn't marry Elon Musk. He may not be a millionaire now, but I still have to work. So I'm like, yeah, I'm holding out for that. But either way, if he doesn't, I still have to, bring my stuff that I brought into the marriage. Because, people come in with debt, which is something we discussed before we got married, was the debt. Because I may not see him as a millionaire, but he sees himself as a person that's going to be a millionaire. So he's already setting me up. And he's like, how much debt do you have? What's your credit? These are conversations we had before we got married. I was not dating.
Well, you should.
Until my credit hit 700. I'm telling you a real story because we went on a date and it hit my alert, and he's like, "You're lying. Let me see your phone." And I'm like, "My credit had just hit 700." I'm like, "Did I just enter the poll to be able to date this guy?" Like, but at that moment, I didn't see the vision. Now that we're married, I'm like, "Oh, he was setting me up to be at home, so he could go to work and I'm here all the time." Right now, women my age, when I tell them like, I came from work and I came home and I was doing this and that, and they're like, you're working and you're doing all of this at home. And I'm like, aren't we all? Like, I thought we were all doing this. I was like, oh, some people have kids and do way less. And I just have a dog and a husband. I'm like, oh, there's people out here with kids that refuse to cook or refuse to clean or just ordering food every day. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, yeah. I'm like, for some it works, for some it doesn't. But it wasn't until today that you said that I was like, well, housewife is throughout the years, that vision has changed. Because I'm like, you're thinking about your mom, which I got my aprons over there if you want me to wear them. You're thinking about the aprons and the fresh pie and the husband comes and the kids. And I'm like, we don't have kids that live with us all the time. So we still have the same atmosphere, but it's different now. The same thing with, people that do have the kids and the house is a crazy mess. They always tell you, like, girl, I've just been so busy. And I'm like, doing what? Like, doing what? Doing
That
what?
was really it's really insightful. I don't know if Celeste and Chauncey and Aisha, you just gradually moving this because you ain't like old like us, but we not old, but we seasoned old. No, we not. Well, okay, whatever. Did y'all
Seasoned
pick
is
up what
good, Kim.
season? Okay, I
Seasoned is
won't go to the old part because I don't want to be in the old category. Did y'all pick up what Jaslyn said? People her age.
right. I picked that up right away, right? So she's a millennial. Am I correct? Right. So, and you would be at a different definition as to what it is, but at the same time, still being the same, right? Um, I think about there were times when my mom was just a housewife, right? And I don't mean just in menial, I mean just as in responsibilities, right?
Mhm.
So she was a housewife and did not work outside the home. That changed for her. And so there were times when she went back into the workforce, times she came back out, depending on her situation. My parents got divorced. My mother eventually got remarried, so on and so forth. So for my own personal situation, I went to school, I got my degree, I got my education, but there came a time when I was married the first time and I had to make a decision because when you start looking at expenses, because you're working and the kids are in private school or daycare or wherever you have them going, that costs money, right? And then it costs money to go to work, right? Because back then I've been in the work corporate America for, close to 40 years. So, I started at a time where women still couldn't wear pants to the office, right? And we had to wear pantyhose and
Oh God.
had to wear dresses. So I'm going way, way back, right? And so that gradually changed. So when you think about that, the clothes you have to wear, they have to be dry cleaned because everything wasn't wash and wear back then. And your pantyhose and your shoes, and you got to take them to the cobbler, as my family would call them, but that's the shoe repair store where they got to fix you. All of this costs money. So it's costing you money to go make money. So you had to get to the point where you decided if one person works and the other person stays home, are we bringing in more money because that it's that one person working and now you're taking care of everything else and you don't need a babysitter and they can go to a school even if there's no tuition. Now you don't have to do before and after care and you have to look at all these different things.
That
But
was our situation.
right. But I did find
Exactly. Two little ones.
right. And I found that for myself, it worked for a while, but me being who I am, having the education that I had, I needed to be in the workforce. And so there were decisions that had to be made. And, we made them, we sat down, we had conversations, and I did it for, a year or so. And then I went back to work, but I did something part time, right? Until the kids got to be a certain age. But even with degrees and having the education, you're still taking a job that's paying you less because the more responsibility means the less time at home. And
Ooh,
so again,
bing, bing, bing. Say that again.
more responsibility at work means less time at home. And so, like you said, husband got to eat, dinner got to be fixed, especially if you're in traditional roles. Not every family is in the traditional role, right? But if you're the one that cooks because the other spouse can't cook, folks got to eat. You can't eat out every day because then again, it starts to get expensive, right? It's costing these absorbent amounts of money. And then now the kids can't participate in extracurricular activities because you're spending all your money ordering out. So yeah, there's this balance and yeah, but then you're home and people have an expectation, partners have an expectation of you, and it's like, well, this couldn't be done. You had all day. Why couldn't you get this done?
Oh yeah, that's a.
So
I
then,
think you just opened a hornet's nest when you said that.
well, because the honeydew list starts to grow, right? And so you're just kind of like, and then if you set a standard and you fall below that standard, now that other person is like, yo, what's up? What happened? What you doing? You used to do it. Now you don't
I
do
think
it.
it also depends on your partner, because I mean that's super abrasive. Because I'm on my house 24/7, but
Mhm.
there's times that I need a break. I don't tell my husband; he can tell, and I'll just be slump in a corner, and next thing I see, everything is clean. I still go through a little bit of panic because I hate it because he had to do it, but he gets it. I never have gotten the whole like, well, we've been here all week, girl. That bathroom's looking a little. I'm like, even if I expected that, and I'm like, because I heard this so much from people that were older than me. Like, when you get into this role, if you keep this, your man is always going to expect this. So I'm in a marriage where I'm like, if I don't do this, this man's going to lose his stuff on me, and I'm like, it's really not like that. When you're in a relationship that like, it's. I think when you start thinking about like, if I go to work and I don't do this and that, you have to really think about the partner that you have, because a lot of these partners aren't as supportive. Because I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, oh my God, imagine if in my situation, I take a day off and my husband is like, what are you doing? I would be like, like I would shut down.
Well,
So I think a lot of women that talk to me, I'm looking at them like, who are you married to that's talking to you like this?
well, I think that their experiences, right? So if you're fortunate enough to get with a man who lived on his own for a long time and had to take care of things himself,
Right.
that partner is going to be a better partner for you, right? But if you get the dude that left mom's house who did everything and then comes to live with you, yeah, you're gonna be in a situation where they're kind of like, okay, what's happening? Or, like my husband who can clean and do a lot of these things. When I found out he was washing the clothes wrong, I had a fit. Like, what are you, that why I'm itching? Like, why are you putting the detergent in the fabric softener container? Like, that goes in after the rinse. Like, what? Don't touch my clothes. Don't touch the washer. I got this. You know what I mean? So it just, that when you say who you're married to or who you're with, that's
Big
where a lot of
difference.
that comes from. It comes from their experience. And there are some men who watch their fathers help their mothers. So then they're more apt to help a spouse when they come along. But those old school where dad just went out and he worked and mom did everything, yeah, they kind of had the expectation of the person they're going to be with to do the same thing. It's human nature.
Mhm.
So,
Thought,
let's
my
I
let's-
husband's
think
military background. I thought it was going to be like that, but I was like, it's just got, Marines, everything's got to be spick and span. My father-in-law's in the Marines. When they come visit, I'm dusting everything with my hand. I'm like, but they're not like that.
White glove test.
I don't play with that. I know they do that to the Marines. I've been doing that. When my father-in-law comes, I'm like, hey, Pops, and I'm touching everything. I'm like, everything's gonna be perfect because I don't know what he's licking. I don't know what they're doing.
Oh, he looking.
Really nothing like that. Don't tell me that.
He looking just like he's looking.
I'm about to call him like, Pops, you don't need nothing. Don't come.
He looking. Celeste, what you were gonna say?
well, I will always have the different of everybody else. First of all, every time we have an episode,
Just wait.
every time we have an episode, it brings a new awareness to me. So I mean, this is why I'm so passionate about this platform, because it makes me open up, because my situation was totally different. So when I met my husband, one of the things that I really liked about him was the fact that I wouldn't have to do none of those things. He was going to cook, he was going to clean, he was going to do all that. 6 months into the marriage, he was like, okay, let me teach you. I was like, no, I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know none of that. I didn't want to cook. I don't want to I didn't want to know. Like, I thought this was how this was going to go. But I was pregnant at that point. And so I made a decision to stay home for 8 years to take care of the kids. I raised my kids and I stayed home, but I didn't have that. I guess I had the housewife thing, but I also had a man that still came home and cooked, because he cooked the best. Because I cooked the traditional macaroni and cheese, collard greens. He's cooking like blah blah blah. We only got spam. I make spamaroni or whatever. So, and he was more passionate about cleaning. I clean, he did the tough clean, like the army clean, with the screw, with the toothbrush. So I didn't have that. I'm listening to y'all going, tag. I was rotten.
Well,
No, like I envied you. I envied you because I'm like I didn't have that opportunity. Oh, Aisha, because I know you sound
I'm
everybody.
coming with the shenanigans. I'm coming with all the shenanigans. And one of the reasons why I love this platform is because we get to give so many different perspectives. So I just wanted to come with my little 2 cents to show folks just another possibility of what exists. One thing that is huge, huge, huge in my household and in my marriage with my husband was communication and transparency. We had so many conversations, just like Jaslyn said, before we got together, just about what we expected in life. And my husband got the low down. Like, I'm an unruly, like, I do what I want kind of housewife. Like, my grandmom and them, they were like that generation of, like, the woman's going to do all the things and the house is going to be like so and so. Like, we have children, so I'm here with the kids. Like, that's a whole lot in and of itself. So the house is going to look like the house is going to look, and if you wanted to look a certain way, you can get on in here and do whatever you feel
Sing, girl.
because
Absolutely.
yeah.
that part.
And also
That
and I was a very busy, very driven, very motivated entrepreneurial person with a whole bunch of degrees when we met. So he knew at a certain point, like, that was never going to change for me. So my being home and being a housewife, like, okay, but I got stuff I got to do. Like, I'm going to work and I'm going to make my own money. So if all this shit fall apart, we're not going to be SOL. Like, I got to make
I know
sure
that's
we're
right.
good. Well, I'm gonna do the housewife thing, but at the same time, I have to be doing something else that's just for me, that's just mine, so that I don't get so caught up in the house and the husband and the kids and whatever that I've lost the sense of myself. So yeah, there's a whole lot of different ways to be a housewife. And I feel like people get into sticky situations when there are two different sets of unclear expectations, and those conversations are not being had about what I need, what you need, and what's best for the household. Because those are three totally different things, and one doesn't necessarily have to mean that the other is less important. They're just different. And they can all be operating at the same time, but you honestly have to think about what's best for the husband, what's best for the wife, what's best for the family as a whole. And if there are children in the mix in any capacity, you have to factor that in too. I love when you were talking about the expenses of going to work. That is absolutely true. When you have children, it's like you have to factor in childcare. And at one point, that was a conversation that we had. It's like, okay, well, what I will be making in this particular capacity is basically going to go to the expenses of having this job and childcare. Well, at that point, I may as well stay home and make sure they're getting the love,
I
the
stayed
attention,
home.
and the care that I know they deserve. And I don't have to worry about them being influenced by all these external, sources and other people, having too many hands and too much of a say in how my children are growing up. So at that point, it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna stay home, but these are the things, this is how this is gonna play out. Like, can you work with that? Because if not, we're gonna have another conversation.
Well, I love what you were saying about the transparency and the communication, right? Because that's what Jocelyn was just, mentioning when she was talking about this. It was a conversation that she and her husband had from the beginning. So for me, the first time, what I found eventually was that, my first spouse didn't want to do anything outside the house as far as going to the market, going to the store, having to pick up dry cleaner. So then those all became my responsibilities, right? So then his responsibility was cleaning. So when I came home, even though he was home before me, when I came home during in the evening, that kitchen was clean, that house was clean. Him and the kids had everything the way it was supposed to be. So I could go straight to that kitchen, get dinner started, check on homework. And so then we had certain roles, right? And certain responsibilities. So he did the cleaning, I did the cooking and the outside running, right? So you find the balance and where that works. And so whereas how we do it here, we're pretty much equal with everything, but there are certain things that I'd rather do because I want it done a particular way. But I'm not fussing at you. I'm not saying you have to do this, this, and this because I want it done a certain way. I take on that responsibility.
So is it clear to say that the younger generation has a different view on this housewife thing? that we did, and it makes sense. It makes sense, but this is a lot different, Jocelyn.
Well,
It's a lot
It's a
different.
lot different.
but it's better because they're making it their own definition between
Yes.
that
Yes.
house
I was just going to say that.
and me.
Yes.
I
So
think it's
I
really
respect
different
that.
because we're, more active and more vocal in, our needs and what will make us happy. I feel like that's a huge difference. In the older generations, it was just like this expectation. And I feel like as far as the wives are concerned, their needs were more secondary to the household and the family and everything else. And I think we're a lot more vocal about, what we want and how
See,
we want things.
I don't think that was different for me because I made that distinction. Nobody's gonna touch my kids. Nobody's gonna touch my
That's why I'm
kids.
laughing.
Nobody's gonna teach them. Nobody's going to babysit. My mother kept them one time. Because she did it to me. She didn't let anybody keep me. You keep your own child. You take care of your own. And that's how I am now to this day with them.
Right,
So
right.
it was clear if I was going to have these little people that I was going to have to fall back financially too, because we were going to all have no clothes on if I had to go to work and pay for daycare and all that other stuff, because they went to a special school and had special stuff. So yeah, but the cleaning, everything was clean. But if there was something that needed to be done, whoever's available could do it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Period, right?
Okay, so I'm gonna interject with what
Your
I
house was always clean, Kim. You can't even talk.
But that's my thing.
I don't even understand. I don't even understand how she kept her house clean. I don't even understand.
Because that, just like you said, that's my knack. I can't cook for you. Let me tell you, when I first met my husband, right? Let me tell you, this was really bad, right? I was, I got divorced and I was dating my husband, and my husband was at the house, and I was not a person that could cook. I'm just gonna be honest with you. So Monday through Friday, I used to buy those little TV dinners for the kids, right? You can get 10 at Food Lion, 10 for $10. And I used to tell if my daughter was here right now, she would make me feel so ashamed, right? 10 for $10. And
I think you're doing a good thing by yourself.
Huh?
You're doing well by yourself. You don't have to be here.
I think they loved it so much, right? And I was like, they got a brownie in it, and look at the chicken leg, right? So my husband was like, I'm gonna fix your dinner one day. And he went and cut up some peaches for it, and he gave my daughter peaches. My daughter was like, "What is that?" He said, "I'm gonna call the people you. You ain't get his child no peaches."
Like they had a plastic to take off of it.
Yeah, I was like, she had peaches. It came in one of these TV dinners. It just didn't look like that. She didn't have
Right.
fruit. And he was like, "Oh my God!" So I was like, I think I fell in love with him then when he was just cooking these meals, and they were so good. And I saw my daughter at the table doing just like this. She wouldn't even look up. Right? He was like,
she was probably praising God right there. Lord, thank you.
Thank you.
He was like this because there was only one thing I ever cooked was stewed chicken, and that was every Sunday I would cook stewed chicken. And because when I was growing up, Chauncey, I was the youngest, right? So that wasn't something my mom, demanded me to do. Cleaning was everybody's responsibility, and because of that, that's my niche now. I'm not going to be around filth and dirt and none of those things. So I think how me and my husband kind of really click is because he don't care about that. When he go through the kitchen, I'm like, what the hell happened in here? And see, when I tried to make an attempt, my mom was like, you better clean up while you're cooking. So none of that stuff is getting all over. So I think that we are just polar opposites in a lot of ways, but it makes it work. But when we talk about a housewife, I just remember me being for a small period of time, like after I closed my shop and I was just, in this transition, I felt like every day that I needed to, of course, I'm going to keep the house clean, but I needed to try to make an attempt to cook something for my husband who's been gone all day long. You know what I mean? So, but still, I still had a side hustle going on. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's what a lot of young people do now. Like I have a lot of friends who are millennials and they're housewives, but they are influencers. You know what I mean? They're used not just because there's a couple of them don't even have children, but they use their interior design of their house to be influencer, getting paid for it. So I think they make it work in different ways because they're not going out in the workforce, but they really are taking on an entrepreneurial, role. So I think that would have been something I would have loved to do. I'm gonna be honest. When my kids was little, I would have loved to be at home teaching them. You know what I mean? I did teach them, but I mean, I had to go with what the school did. But I think if I could have taught them what I know, would have worked for them because they were both different. You know what I mean? I think it would have been a lot easier for them. So I praise the housewife. You know what I mean? If you could be in that role and you can have hands on, you know what I mean? And the relationship you have with your spouse. I think it's just like you said, it's communication. You know what I mean? Communication is everything. But I'm gonna read y'all this one thing because I thought I was a little crazy when I read it, but I want to hear your opinion. The interpretation of a housewife is the housewife is an unpaid worker in her husband's house in return for security of being a permanent employee.
Where was that? The
Well,
Bible?
pretty much. That's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah, because that's
But
old.
yeah, I mean, it sounds harsh, but it's very much true, right? But like you said, the definition has kind of evolved over time, right? So I don't think it's that.
Yo, this definition
like-
came from March 2022.
No, but I'm saying it still could be the traditional definition.
interpretation of it.
It still could be the traditional
Yeah,
definition.
'cause when you think of housewife, there's different pictures of housewife. And I was telling Chauncey that like people think that housewife now means that you're drinking mimosas all day and laughing at your husband for being so rich and dumb. Like I'm like, oh, back then
Rich and dumb.
because they have to be dumb. I was like, there's no way.
What's that lady's name? Joan Cleaver? What's her name? Joan Cleaver?
Is it dumb?
June Cleaver.
June Cleaver. They used to call me June Cleaver.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the Beeves mom.
I want to make the pies. I want to make the cakes. I don't want to cook nothing for her.
I go towards the older one. I'm like, I have my aprons and stuff. And
I want to do that.
That's
I'm
who
like,
she was.
You know,
She wore
the aprons have cartoons on them. You know, I
Yeah.
keep it.
And
I would love to do that, but like you said, it has to be something that we can afford to do, and he needs to be out there forging ahead, doing all the business, and I ain't have that either.
She also
had
used to vacuum in high heels with pearls on, but that's a
I
whole.
I cut the grass with high heels
Yeah, me
on. I've
too.
done that.
That's how you break your heels in. You got to clean in your heels. That's how you break.
Yeah, I've cut the grass with heels on.
Listen, this is what I tell my
husband.
husband. Let it slide, all right?
you know what? I think a big part we just left out though. You know what I mean? We talking about like the responsibilities of maintaining the house and maintaining children if you have children. But what about, we talk about the husband, like their expectations when you're a housewife, seems to be a little bit I guess more. Can I get that consensus?
I think it depends on how they were raised too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I said. Remember, I went back to how they were raised and what
Mhm.
they watched and what they saw, right?
Mhm.
Because it can just go either way. You might have that young man who had that single mother and she was always working and she was coming home and keeping house and doing all of that. And
Mhm.
because his mom did that, that made him more sensitive to when he got a woman in his life that he didn't want her working like that. His
That's
mom.
You know what I did meet a lot of though? There's a lot of men that weren't raised with mothers like that, and they bring in a very unrealistic image of what a housewife is supposed to be. And I'm like, I met your mom. Your mom doesn't cook or clean. So why do you want me to be better than your mama? Is what I'm trying to figure out. But you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of the guys, they come at you and it's like, you need to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, I met your mom in the block. Like, you can't expect that from me. Me and your mom are friends now. Like, you can't do that. But you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the guys that they have the mom that does it traditionally. A lot of them are sensitive, but then you have the guys that weren't raised with that, and they bring this unrealistic. I've dated those guys where I'm like, oh, you got me.
You tell them to go back to their mother.
Well, because the thing is, it's a desire, right? So then you also have what you feel your household should be. And now they want you, but they weren't clear with that. They didn't ask you, they're demanding it. And I am of the nature that once you start to demand something of me, just unconsciously, I ain't doing it.
Well, we need to have a part two because we could go on all.
I was telling Kim the comments. This is an open thread for us to keep it going.
Oh, yes.
I want to know more about
I
this.
hope they like the comments up.
Well, I'm gonna say this, you know,
Oh, and
wrapping
then
this up. Go ahead.
we have to bring back later too what
Uh-huh.
it looks like later in life. What does
Okay.
housewife or house husband look like when you're older? So
Mhm.
like Kimmy and myself, married a second time, and now we're empty nesters, no one's at home. What's the expectation there?
That's a good one.
Because I do call somebody once a month to come and do a deep cleaning in my house. but
Call
I-
me, girl.
Amen. Say it to the back
Hey,
of the
man,
choir,
can I
Lord.
get that number?
Hallelujah.
Do they
Auntie,
come to
give
New
them my
Jersey?
number.
Girl, you ain't never
I'll
lied
keep
about
up-
that.
I keep up their work throughout, and my husband is a neat freak, but I ain't doing it because I don't have
Let me
to.
tell you
So
something. We
this is
earn our
just-
stripes. We done showed off already. We ain't cleaning nothing else if we don't have to.
Make sure you send me that number, Chauncey. Do you come over the bridge? Yeah, this was a really good episode. Thank you, Jaslyn.
Thank you, guys.
I think that we will have to have a part 2, and let's just go around with some final thoughts. I'm gonna start with you, Aisha.
My final thought will be a point that I had shared earlier. Communication is the best. It eliminates so much confusion and frustration later on when both people know what they want and can articulate that clearly to their partner. That is definitely best. And also, don't be afraid to make changes and adjustments if you tried something out, because one thing that we're finding in my household is that we change and evolve as people. We've been together for about 15 years now, and it's like the things that worked for us 10 years ago even may not be working right this second. So now we're making some changes and adjustments. There's nothing wrong with how we were doing things. It just may not be speaking to who we are in this journey of our lives. So communication and being flexible would be best.
That's a good one. Celeste?
I think that was it. That was well said right there, because everybody's situation is different. Everybody comes to the table hopefully with different qualities. And if we're a partner, that's my partner, and we're a couple, we're gonna have to make adjustments. We got 2 kids. I know you want me to do all the cleaning, but babe, if you don't help me, it ain't getting clean. They was up all night with a fever. I'm tired. You gotta give a little bit. I'm the housewife, maybe, but it's also an opportunity for you to help me, So if we can communicate like that, I think everything will be great. Especially before we get married, right?
Yeah, before. Chauncey?
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, we're a team. And so where one partner is lacking, the other one should be able to pick up.
Absolutely.
Vice versa, right? Accelerate or expand on your strengths, right? Okay, you know what? I know I'm pretty good at this, so I'm going to stick with this for right now, and I'll do this, this, and this. Can you help me with this? So back to what Aisha was saying, communication, being clear, being adaptable, because things change over time. We haven't even got into if someone gets sick or someone can't do, and all of that. So you have to be ready for that change. And again, I mentioned us getting older, right? How that looks when we get older, and who's going to do what, when, where, and how. So
thanks. Jaslyn?
Well, I think the common theme is communication. And I mean, like I try to tell people when I have this conversation with, other people, it gets really heated. And I'm like, the things that I do in my house doesn't make me a better wife than you. It's the same way the stuff that you do in your house doesn't make me less of a wife in my house. We all have different experiences. And I'm like, we should be able to communicate and share our different experiences. Because I'm like, even in this group, I'm like, wow, I've learned a lot of things that I came in here that I'm like, I didn't even think about that stuff. Empty nesters and all that stuff at an older age. Because, I'm thinking I'm going to be 30 forever. So it's just it, communication. You're going to have to talk to each other about this. And it doesn't make a person better than the other person. It's just the way a house works. That's it. It's the way my house works. Your house works differently, but it's working. That's it.
So we will have a part 2, because there's a lot of strings still need to be tied. And it would be nice to talk about men. What we call them? House man? Or what are they called?
Stay-at-home dads.
Huh?
Stay-at-home dads, work husbands.
Stay-at-home dads. I was gonna like house man. Does not sound
That's
good. That sounds like a butler.
Stay-at-home dads.
But we need to have a conversation about that because more and more that is becoming the norm. You know what I mean? So we'll definitely do an episode. I'm gonna look and see if I can find somebody who's a stay-at-home dad, you know, and
especially a man of color.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
We're like,
stay-at-home
yeah.
dads, but
Yeah.
that's not what I see too much with them. So it would be a very interesting.
So anybody knows one of them, please let me know and we can just Chauncey stop. If you know, you do, Aisha?
I do. Yep.
Okay, so let's talk because I really would like to hear his perception of what people perceive him to be and stuff. Because I can tell you, a lot of things are thought about stay-at-home dads, and you know, I think some of it is just blatantly being, you know, unrealistic. Because, like we said, if it balances out the house,
yeah.
let's do it. You see what I'm saying? So thank you, ladies, and again, let's welcome Jaslyn because Jaslyn is joining our porch, and I'm so happy she is my niece, and I love her, and I'm really happy to have her on here. So join us every Wednesday when we drop a new episode. You can catch us on our Facebook page, our Instagram page, our TikTok, and definitely YouTube page when we have a new episode drop on Wednesday. So joining me today is
Your girl Celeste.
I'm Chauncey.
Aisha Catalano. Go ahead, Jaslyn.
Jaslyn. All right. So everybody have a wonderful week on purpose, and we'll see you next week. Take care.